Welcome back, pet parents. Today's episode is for you. And every episode is for you. I know that, but today's episode is different for you because I have a very special guest. Today's guest is Eliza Burr, and she is a pet business coach. If you haven't heard of a pet business coach, well, today is the day that you are going to learn all about it. And I am willing to bet that you are going to be super interested because all of us pet parents, we're obsessed with our animals. And some of us, well, we're so obsessed with animals, we want to work with them, but we don't know how to get started. So Eliza is here to help talk us through it. What is a pet business coach, how she can help you, how you can actually start your own business working with pets and animals. Thank you so much for joining us today, Eliza.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks, Jessica.
So we connected recently. I had a chance to chat with you and talk to you about your journey and becoming a pet business coach because you have been in the pet world. You owned your own business. You've done your own things, dog walking, pet sitting, lots of things, working with animals in the past. And now you are helping people learn how to have their own business and work with animals, which is a pretty amazing thing to do. So how did you become a pet business coach?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I have had my own pet businesses in the past. I actually graduated with, this is going back a bit, but I graduated with a degree in zoology and promptly went into something that had nothing whatsoever to do with animals and was in the corporate world for almost 30 years, at which point I decided that I wanted to do something different. You know, I had enjoyed my career, learned a lot of things and saw a lot of new places and people. But I was just missing something. I loved animals. I knew I wanted to do something different. I had never been an entrepreneur. I'd never started my own business. So I started doing some research and found that pet sitting and dog walking was a good business to start as a new pet business owner. So I launched into it and I worked both. I worked the pet business as a side hustle for about a year before I left my corporate job and started doing that full time. And I was able to build that business. This was based in Omaha, Nebraska, to 12 employees and hundreds of clients in just 18 months. So it grew very rapidly. And during that time, I found that other pet business owners were asking me questions, and I enjoyed helping them. I enjoyed it a lot, actually. So I realized that that's what I wanted to focus on. So I just at the beginning of last year, I decided I would become a pet business coach full time. Officially, I'd been helping people for many years, but officially I launched the Pet Business Coach, and I've been working with pet businesses all over the country ever since.
That's incredible. And yours isn't the only story like that, just on this podcast alone. So I have had, I worked with a lady when I lived in San Diego who she owned a pet sitting business, and it grew pretty rapidly just in the time that I was living in San Diego, and I hired her people to come in and take care of my pets. And now she's in like 4 different states, and she has been on the podcast talking about, how to choose a pet sitter and things like that, which was really wonderful advice. I also have had Isabel Alvarez Arata on the podcast, who used to own her own pet sitting business in Northern Virginia, and that blew up and grew like crazy. And just for the listeners, Alexa Rabini has also been on the podcast. She's in Vegas, but she has a different tale, specifically when it comes to like avoiding certain services like Rover and things like that because of all of the maybe not so wonderful, they're like Ubers of pet sitting. So people like you and April Henley and Isabel, like these are professional pet sitters, and there's a huge difference. There's a big contrast, but just to give some people like an
Absolutely.
idea to go back and listen to these episodes, because I know I talked about my struggle, especially. I mean, I had a hard time initially when I moved to San Diego, but moving from San Diego to Texas, I had a really difficult time finding a pet sitter. So all of that to say, like, this is a really in-demand service industry.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're here to help people figure out how to do it and, actually make it something that they're not just doing on nights and weekends, that like they can actually make a business out of this, I think that is so valuable. So thank you for being here again.
Yeah, it is. And you hit the nail on the head when you said, this is a professional service. And, 20, 30 years ago, people didn't view this as something that other people did for a living. They viewed it more as a hobby. And certainly there are some great hobby pet sitters out there, but the people I work with are professionals. They own the business. They're doing this because they love animals, but they're also doing it because they need to put food on the table and pay the rent. And Rover, you mentioned Rover. A lot of people have a lot of different opinions on Rover, but one thing Rover has done for the industry is publicized the fact that this is a profession and that these people work very hard at what they do. And they've done a wonderful job of it. So it used to be when I was first running my business that, I would get strange looks when I told people I was a professional pet sitter and yeah, what do you really do for a living? And you still get a few of those. There's still an educational component to what we do, but it's definitely getting a little bit better. People are definitely learning.
Yeah. So, of course, so far we've talked quite a bit about pet sitting, which I think I don't, in my mind, dog walking kind of comes under the same umbrella, but who knows?
Same,
Maybe it's
yeah, and
completely
I
different.
kind of mean both when I say pet sitting.
And we can certainly continue to talk about pet sitting, but are there other pet businesses that you coach?
I do. I coach all kinds of pet businesses. I had a client just the other week who has opened up a pet wedding service business. I thought that was so interesting. She comes in and she takes care of the dog. She brings him when he needs to be there, puts the rings on him or whatever he's going to carry down the aisle, gets him out exercised, everything you need to do at a wedding with your dog. So yeah, I work with all kinds of businesses, but I do tend to focus on pet sitting and dog walking businesses. And part of the reason for that is, especially for new pet business owners, it's a very, I don't want to say easy, but it's an easier business to start and get into because there is, not a capital requirement in terms of buying a building. If you're a groomer or renting space, it's really something that you can get into fairly inexpensively and fairly quickly. So,
Okay, I just have to ask because the first thing that popped into my head when you said dog weddings, I literally thought like people marrying their dogs together.
oh,
And then as you were talking, I'm like, okay, I'm crazy. She's talking
no,
about people who
okay.
want their dogs to be part of their wedding, and she's
Yeah,
taking care of these dogs being in
exactly.
human
Yeah.
way.
And that's happening more and more often. A lot of people do want not just their dogs, but their pets in their weddings. So, there's a lot of logistics around that. It's not as simple as it seems on the surface. So it's nice to have a business that does that.
Okay, I'm just wondering if anybody else out there thought what I
Well, I could be that, but no, I'm talking about having the dog in the wedding.
I mean, maybe I'm just crazy. I don't know. So, professional pet sitting, dog walking, it really dog weddings. Who knows? Maybe you do want to put together dog weddings. I don't know. But there's more to it, right? So our love of animals is a good start, because the kind of thing that I don't like to see is when people are just like, oh, they're not really pet people and they get into it because it's like to them easy, quick money, whatever. But for the majority of people, it's that they genuinely have, a passion to work with animals. And so my audience is primarily pet parents.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the ideas you can give them if they are interested in maybe working with animals in their next life or next career? Because there are so many other things, like the actual like steps of setting up a business and understanding how to budget and understanding how to schedule and, making sure you have plenty of time and the overlap and all that. Like there is a lot to it.
There is definitely a lot to it, and I'm glad you asked. It's something that people tend to get into because they love animals, and that's not a bad reason, obviously. But to your point, it's a business, it's a small business. So you're wearing a lot of hats, you're doing things that much of the time that are not related to animals, that are related to business. So that's the first piece of advice I'd give is just make sure you know what you're signing up for in terms of the fact that it's a business, you're running a business, and you're working with animals, but that business part of it will take up a big portion of your time. The other thing I'd recommend is make sure you love doing it. And what I mean by that is you get a lot of people who, pet parents, like myself, have had pets their whole life. They love taking care of their own pets, and they've done that for, 20, 30, 40 years, but they have not done professional pet sitting or dog walking before. And those are two, pardon the pun, two very different animals. Doing it professionally is very rewarding. You do get to spend time with animals, but it's also very hard. You're dealing with animals you don't know quite as well. You're working with people, not just animals, people on a regular basis. And it isn't a lot of people get into it and they find that it just professional pet sitting and dog walking is just not something that they're loving. So, I would recommend a couple of routes. You can, and I know again, people have varying opinions on Rover, but Rover does provide a platform for people to try it out, quite honestly, and see how they like it. And even if you just do it for a short amount of time, it does give you a good real life feel for what's involved with running that type of a business. And then the other thing I'd recommend is don't quit your day job. If you're working a 9 to 5, what I mentioned I did was I stayed for a year while I built my business, and then I went into it full time. So, do it as a side hustle for a while, see how you like it. Pet sitting and dog walking businesses in particular have some flexibility around them, so you can kind of work it around your 9 to 5 or another primary job. That's a good idea just to do until you feel like you really love it and really want to move forward with it.
So those are some really good tips because it is something that most people may not think of initially. It's like all fun and games to just go visit and walk dogs all day.
Yeah,
the reality
you're right.
of what's
They
behind
don't
it.
exactly. They don't think about it. And the other thing, I see a lot of beginning businesses tend to do is they become a pet sitter or a dog walker for all types of animals because they figure I like all animals. Well, in reality, they may love cats to death and want to spend hours and hours with cats, but they're not as keen about working with big dogs, for example. So they start offering, services for all kinds and all sizes and all types of animals. And they don't really love working with some of those types of animals. So they tend to get a little bit disillusioned and stressed out in their jobs. So I would encourage people to think about, I know you love animals. I love animals, but everybody has their preferences and what types of animals they like to work with. And bear that in mind when you're structuring your business and deciding what kind of services to offer.
So is that a service that you provide to people, figuring out what their offer should be and helping them figure out scheduling and really what their passion actually is?
I do absolutely. I provide everything, soup to nuts. We talk about marketing, hiring, service offerings, pricing, whatever clients need, I talk with them about. This does also tend to be an industry where people get burnt out because pet sitters and dog walkers especially are caregivers at heart. So it's difficult for them to say no sometimes. So that does lead to a little bit of burnout in the industry. So I do work with a lot of people on how to set up their businesses so that they love them, so that they're not stressed out, so that it works for them in their lives as well as their businesses.
And as far as like future planning and expectations for the trajectory of where businesses probably should go to actually be able to be, feasible, make people to make a feasible living. Is this something that you see a lot of people are just getting in because they want to be pet sitters? Or do people understand, or do you have to coach them through to understand that it's probably going to take them in a path where they're managing pet sitters?
Definitely. And that's actually another thing I would recommend is when you're first setting up a business, think about the immediate, obviously, but also think long term. Do you want to be a solopreneur, for example, just you going out and doing pet sitting visits and running the business, or do you want to eventually hire employees or independent contractors? Because at that point, as you said, you're managing people, you're managing other pet caregivers. So which is a whole other thing. And some people and that's fine. Some people are just not wanting to sign up for that. So there are a lot of solopreneurs out there, but in order to scale the business, obviously you only have so many hours in the day. So you will work a lot of hours and a lot of days and very rarely have time off if you are a solopreneur. But, the trade-off you get is you won't be having to worry about managing people. So there's pluses and minuses on both sides, definitely.
And that's something that you can help coach people through to
Absolutely.
kind of understand where they want to go with it.
Yeah, I talked to a lot of pet business owners who are right at the cusp of their businesses growing rapidly, and they are doing all the visits and caregiving themselves, and they're exhausted, quite honestly. So they're on the verge of wanting to hire and help, and I help them through that transition and switching over.
Awesome. So there are, we'll talk in just a minute about where people can find out more and if there are some resources available to them. But I would like to ask you really quickly, just because I think you have a good understanding and can help people. And since my audience is primarily pet parents, what suggestions do you have for, anyone, but the pet parent listening who want to support small pet businesses? Because there is a big difference in, big business and small business, and
yeah,
how can you kind of help people navigate supporting that?
I'm so glad you asked that because I think so many pet business owners out there are not as supported as they should be. Two things. I very much encourage pet parents to remember that the pet caregiver that you're hiring is a professional. So much like you wouldn't argue with your plumber for the prices he's charging you for his services, you don't really argue or haggle with your pet sitter for the price of their services as well. That's just part of keeping in mind that they are a professional, and honestly, they're not out to make $1 million. They're doing it because they love animals. So bear that in mind. The other thing I would definitely recommend is spread the word. I know when I'm looking for sitters, if I move to a new place and I'm looking for sitters for my own furry family, I'm asking everybody I can find, who's your pet sitter? What do you think of them? Definitely, if you find someone, if you love them, tell other people about them, leave reviews, just spread the word, because we pet business owners tend to be smaller by nature. There's not a lot of big ones out there. So those small businesses really do thrive on word of mouth and feedback and reviews.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a big theme on this show, is supporting small businesses. And
yeah,
I also like bonus points if it's a women-owned business. Right?
Yes.
Which
is great, because probably more than 90% of pet businesses out there are women owned.
Right. And to be able to know that and have that connection with the connection you get with a small business is vastly different from the connection you get from, big business, or, these conglomerate owned places that
so
a lot
true.
of us shop currently. But yeah, I think some of the if you don't mind, some of the talking points that you have had throughout today's episode kind of make me think, one, if this is something that you might be interested in, if you do think that you would like to start your own small business centered around animals in some way, shape, or form, first of all, obviously, if Eliza is here to help you with that. But especially with some of those tips you gave for supporting small business, I think that's kind of a gauge for like how you feel about small business to begin with, and how you're going to be able to like understand running a small business is kind of in that field of how you handle it and how you deal with it anyway. And that, the temperament that people have, the character that people have, that can actually, in my mind, be like a really good starting point with, should I do this? Should I not do that?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. That's a good observation.
So thank you so much, by the way, for bringing this information to my audience, because I'm sure there are some pet parents out there who would really like to spend more time working with animals, maybe create their own path in life to be more self-sufficient and figure out how to do this like entrepreneur thing, but they just have no idea where to start. So do you have resources on your website? How can people follow up with you and find out more?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a website, obviously. The website is thepetbusinesscoach.dog. You can find out everything about me and the services I offer there. Or I do also offer a free 20-minute consultation to anybody who would like to kind of explore whether or not opening a pet business is a good move for them. And you can find that at tpbc.dog, stands for the Pet Business Coach, tpbc.dog. And the other thing I'd encourage folks to do is there are a couple of large pet care organizations nationally. One is NAPS, the National Association for Professional Pet Sitters, and the other one is PSI, Pet Sitters International. And those are, you can Google those. Those are great organizations to learn a little bit more about the industry, what being a pet care professional means, and just get a better feel for whether it's a good thing for you to do.
Those are excellent resources. Thank you so much, Eliza. And I will make sure that those links that you just talked about are in the show notes for people to find out more. Is there anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to say?
No, just, I know what it feels like to be in a 9-to-5 for a long time that you just don't want to be in anymore. And a lot of people think, supporting yourself, having a business taking care of animals every day is out of reach, but it really isn't. It's been a tremendous journey for me, and I love helping make that happen for others as well.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for being here and talking to my audience, Eliza. And please make sure to check the show notes. Visit thepetbusinesscoach.dog to find out more, as well as, was it tpbc.dog? Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
tpbc.dog to book a free 20-minute consultation with Eliza if you are interested in making a career out of working with animals. Thank you so much for being here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Make sure that you're following the show so you never miss an episode. And please take a moment to rate the show on your podcast app. I'd also love it if you'd share this podcast with your friends and family so that they can benefit from the information to help their pets live long, happy lives too. Don't forget to take advantage of this special discount as a listener today and get access to over 100 online videos in my online dog training, The Furry Family Coach. Just go to thefurryfamilycoach.com and use code PODCAST at checkout to get your first month for only $7. That's thefurryfamilycoach.com and use code PODCAST at checkout to get your first month for only $7. I can't wait to have you join and see you on the inside.